Okay, so you all are here to listen to me talk about HR. Woohoo! Right? So before I get started, I'd like to learn a little bit about each one of you. Well, not maybe each one of you, but let me get a sense of what you're looking for here, because I teach at the University of Tampa, and so I can go on for an entire semester about HR and still not cover it all. So I'd like to make sure that I'm covering some of what you need, okay? And if I don't, I'm also offering, I'll be here for an extra 3 hours over in the Veranda East room for you to come and talk with me one-on-one about any specific issues you might be having, and I'll help you however best I can, okay? So, just by a show of hands, how many of you here have less than 50 employees? Okay. A great deal of you. How many of you have over 100 employees? Okay, just a few of you. So in the world of HR, we talk in terms of employees as far as size of business, because that's how the federal laws govern what rules we need to follow. So less than 50, we have unique, some additional unique stressors in our environment. How many of you have a dedicated HR person on staff, whether whole or in part? Okay, over hundreds of you. And so that tells me that if for the rest of you, that you are the HR person, right? Or somebody close to you, okay? So I want to make this very interactive. Again, I can go on for an entire semester about this, but if you have questions specifically about what I'm covering, please raise your hand and ask, because I can almost guarantee you that if you have the question, at least 1 or 2 or 5 other people in the audience have the same question, okay? So I encourage you to do that. Okay, so our top 5 priorities. Basically what I have done is looked at the employee life cycle for our employees, and what do we start off with? When we're looking at new employees, we start off, we have to hire them, right? So we start off with the hiring. How many of you have had fabulous experiences with your hiring process? Crickets, crickets. Okay, we do have one. Oh, okay, a joke, yeah, right? So what I am hearing from the small businesses in my world is that they're hiring people, and then there's this new phenomenon going on called ghosting, right? Where you hire someone and then they say, yeah, I'll take the job, and then they just don't show up. How many of you has that happened to? Disheartening. So how do we overcome that? One of the tools that I like to think about, well, actually, let me dig into that a little bit more. I saw some of you over here that's happened to. What level of person? What specific? Sales manager, okay. Drivers, yeah. What else? Position. I'm sorry? Administration. Drivers. Warehousing. Okay, so a lot of those, we call those non-exempt employees, the hourly workers, that's happening too. And why do you think that that's happening? Sorry? It's easy not to respond. It's easy for them to move on and just not even talk to you and let you know you're not showing up. Why do you think they're not showing up? They decided not to work or got a better offer. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about today is how you become the best offer, okay? And there's a lot of different ways we can do that. There's a lot of different strategies we can do. We're not going to be able to talk about all of them, unfortunately, but if you have a certain situation, again, I invite you to come talk to me and I'll help you out brainstorming some ideas for you, okay? So one of the ways that we can, well, let me start with this. Do you have any employees that you just think are fantastic? You wish you could put them in a mold and stamp them and create a whole workforce of that one employee. Anybody have anyone like that? Yeah. Well, if we are lucky, we have one or a handful of those in our organization. So if you think about those individuals, they're probably going to hang out. My mom told me when I was in high school, be careful who you hang out with, because birds of a feather flock together, right? So employee referrals is a great way to gather information, to gather new other types of employees that are mimicking that one individual, right? So if I am an upstanding citizen, I'm not going to hang out with someone of questionable characters and behaviors, right? More than likely, not always. But so we want to try to emulate our employees. Employee referrals is a great way to do that. Now, sometimes companies will have employee referral programs. Anyone have those here? Like where you pay $100 or $500 for an employee if they refer someone to you. So that's a great, it's really easy marketing, really easy way to get information about the best hires that you have, okay? So employee referrals might be a great way to try to clone your best employees. We're going to talk a little bit about interviewing rules. So when you find those people, you come in and you interview them, and there are certain laws, federal laws, that we have to be really careful about from a labor standpoint. And we also want to ensure that we are creating a strong employer brand. So I'm not going to go into that too much here because I cover it in different ways. When I say strong employer brand, what does that mean to you? Any ideas?
Your culture, reputation of the company.
Yeah, your culture and the reputation of your company. You know, you have people knocking on your door trying to work for you, and because of your strong employer brand, or because they have friends who are there. And we spend over 60% of our waking lives at our job, getting ready for our job, at our job, with our job. So it's important if we're talking about those full-time employees, how we can do that. So one other thing I want to mention before we move off of hiring and onto number 4 is that, onto number 2, it's in actual order, is an opportunity to understand individuals by cloning them again. And that is through behavioral assessments. That can be a tool that you use to help identify the skill sets of the job that you need and match them up with the people who are applying for those jobs. For example, truck drivers. We have an issue hiring and keeping truck drivers, right? So if we have an individual who, actually let you tell me, what are some of the characteristics of the best truck drivers? I'm sorry?
Safe driver.
They're safe? Dependable? Sorry? Intelligent. They also have to be customer facing, right? In some cases, they go and they talk to your customers. They have to have some level of personability, extroversion. So if you have, how do you know that when people come in? How do you know that they're safe drivers? How do you know that they're willing to follow the rules and that they're extroversion? You can get a little bit of a sense of that when you're interviewing them. And you can also use a behavioral assessment that scientifically matches them up based on their characteristics. The one that I like to use is predictive index. There are literally hundreds of them out there, but just be aware that when you're using those for a hiring tool, that it's only one piece of the hiring tool. You still do all of the rest. It's just in addition to what you're currently doing. Okay? You have a question? Anyone have a question on that? I saw some thinking. Okay, but I'm here for you if you have any questions on that further. Okay. So we're talking about interviewing rules, and this is one of the things that I hear and I see when I'm going into small businesses is that we have certain things that we can and cannot ask. So let's have a little quiz, shall we? So I'd like to know from you what you think, if these are questions that are okay to ask in an interview. Number 1, are you a US citizen? Is that okay to ask? I hear a lot of yeses, and in fact, I wager that some of you have this question exactly written like this on your employment applications. This is actually not okay to ask. There's a little tweak. The tweak is, instead you ask, are you authorized to work in the United States? Okay? There's a difference. So we're talking about discrimination, which we'll talk about in a few slides. So we need to just make sure that we are protecting our companies from anything that can appear as discriminatory. And that's one little tweak that you can use. Okay? So go check your employment applications and see if this is on there. Are you 18 or older? Is that okay to ask? Yes, no, maybe so. This one actually is okay. This is okay to ask. What is not okay, which is a common thing that I see on employment applications, is if you have your high school graduation date on the employment application, because that's telling you pretty much exactly how old they are. And age is a protected class under the American Age Discrimination and Employment Act. Okay, so it's okay to ask if you're 18 or older. Why? Because we have to abide by all of the Fair Labor Standards Act rules and child labor laws, those kind of things. So it's okay to ask if you're 18 or older. It's not okay to ask how old are you. Okay, very small difference, but very important. Okay. What are your child care arrangements? Is that okay? No, not at all, because if this is not job related, what could you ask instead? Thinking through. Do you have any limitations, or are you able to work with this schedule as laid out, or based on our scheduling, as I've explained it to you, okay? So that's how you can, what other arrangements they have in their personal life, whether it's childcare or otherwise, is up to them. All you need to know, keep it job related, is can you work the hours as laid out? Have you ever been arrested? Is that okay? No, it is not. And I see this on a lot of job applications. What about, have you ever been convicted of a felony? Is that okay? Yes. So make sure, look at your job applications and make sure that you do not have, that you have the word convicted and not arrested, okay? So if we were all held to the standards of what we did in high school or college, you know, there would be a lot of us that wouldn't be eligible for employment based on that. I had an HR professional tell me that one time. I said, you can't ask me that. So, but here's the other thing I want to make sure that you are aware of. There's a new legislation called Ban the Box. So we're talking here, by the way, we're talking here about federal laws. I'm covering federal laws. So there's federal laws, there's state laws, there's township, regional laws, there's city laws, there's laws that refer to public versus private, so it's kind of crazy. However, the Ban the Box says we can always ask if we have someone who has been convicted of a crime. Ban the Box says you have to ask it after the employment offer has been made, okay, or it's a condition, a contingency of employment, okay? So there are certain states, and I'm not going to memorize all of them, but like Connecticut, Massachusetts, Hawaii, California, Oregon, they have the Ban the Box, okay? And then there are certain cities, like I think New York City, New Orleans, some of those, okay? So just know your federal laws, but also know your state laws, and if you have any changes based on that. All right. How much money did you make in your last job? Is that okay? I heard a lot of no's. It depends. That's the lawyer, by the way. If you ever need to hire a labor attorney, which I advise everyone to have a labor attorney on staff that you can just pick up and call. That's going to be probably your answer. It depends. And in this case, it depends on state laws as well. So I think a lot of you said no because you're hearing, that's really big in the news right now. We can't ask people what their last salary was because we should pay them based on the position and based on what they're worth, not on what they used to make. This is one of those things that is, again, state and local regulated. This is not a federal law yet. Okay. All right. So, how'd you do? Okay, so that's hiring. So let's talk a little bit more about what else we can do. What other priorities do we have? At first, before we move on, any questions that you're thinking of right off the top of your head about hiring that you want to ask? Okay. All right. I know there was a lot of questions about benefits. So what can we do outside of the traditional healthcare benefits? And how can we, again, we're trying to attract and retain, that's our employer branding, our culture. We're trying to attract and retain those really awesome employees. One of the ways we can do that is through being a little bit more excited about our benefits and having some different opportunities for benefits. So the opportunities for benefits are endless. I've included a few here, just brainstorming, and I'm going to ask you to think of some other ones that you can think of as well that you've experienced. So, spot bonuses. It could be, hey, great job on delivering that route for that really hectic day. That's a really important customer. Thanks for, we were talking about sales earlier, sales manager. Thank you for saving that customer or closing that deal. And when I'm talking about spot bonuses, it can be very small. It can even be a gift card. It can be a Starbucks card. So it can be something small, but it's a token of appreciation, okay? Or it could be big, you know? If you're saving a customer or if you're acquiring a new customer, that would be more along the commission lines, okay? Maybe you have a parking space if you have an office setting versus a retail setting. Even if you have a retail setting, maybe you have a parking space, and you could think of something unique, right? We're building an employer brand. So outside of employee of the month, what else can you call that person? Outstanding customer service of the month. Best attitude of the month, something like that, right? So there's a lot of different things that we can include and make it fun instead of the stodgy old employee of the month parking space, right? Which can work as well, but I think the more fun we make it, the more people are the more it's going to identify our employer brand. Creating a chalk wall or a whiteboard or sticky notes or pictures. My kid's pediatrician has the wall of all of the kids that they help with all the pictures over Christmas time and all of those things, right? So get pictures of the people that are eating ice cream, you know, have crayons if you have a retail location. Have crayons and have little kids draw pictures and put them on the wall. Have some sort of a fun environment that could work out there. And you're like, well, wait, Jen, we're talking about employee benefits. That's not an employee benefit. I argue that it is, because what are you doing? You're allowing your employees to engage with the customers in a different way that makes them excited about coming to work. That's the benefit of coming to work, whether it's monetary, whether it's something that they get to put in their pocket or tactile. It's more heartfelt, and that's the piece that's so hard to grasp onto when we're talking about employer branding. Instead of a savings account, create a vacation account. It's the same thing if you have a direct deposit. It's the same thing, but you're calling it something different. You're creating that vision for your employees that, yeah, I'm going to get to go on vacation soon, right? They can use it how they want it. Instagram. So my daughter works at a retail clothing store, and it's mostly women. I think it's all women's clothes. And they have once a month, they have women's night, right? And they serve margaritas or champagne, and they really blow it out. Well, my daughter is 17, and so she is on social media, right? Instagram, Snapchat, all of those fun things. So she's showing me all of the fun things that she's doing with Instagram. Anybody know what a boomerang is? I just learned this term because I have a teenage daughter. So a boomerang is when you have those quick little snippets, and it like repeats over and over again, you know? So it's like a 2-second video that is a continuous loop. And they're always fun. So my daughter would take pictures of people coming out of the dressing room with their new outfit on, and take a boomerang picture and having them do something, really excited and happy. You could do the same thing in your locations. Whenever you have a win in your company, whatever it is, whether it's, well, tell me some of the wins that you have in your locations, in your organizations. What are some of the things that you celebrate? New customers is a big one, yes. What else? Birthdays, yes. So these types of things, whether you're having new customers, whether you're having successful deliveries, whether you're having, how many of you have retail locations? Just a few of you, okay, not very many. Okay, so you're more focused on the delivering of the ice cream to those retail locations versus having the retail locations. So you could use this Instagram to celebrate, and you're creating fun in the workplace. So if I can offer, so I'm gonna call you out. I'm gonna pick on you. This young man back here with the beard and the glasses. Yes, you.
I'm very introverted. Go ahead.
Can you stand up, please?
I can. I learned last year.
All right. So I would like for you to show everyone your socks. And I don't know how you're going to do that, if you're going to do high kicks or what have you. There you go. See, thank you. So socks, crazy socks is a thing now, right? It's trending. There are stores that have just crazy socks. Those can be considered crazy, yeah, sure. So we have crazy socks. Maybe that is something that you use to add fun into your workplace environment. And just, again, adding building that brand and that employer brand of someone who likes to have fun in a place. So I went to on a tour of USAA. There's a branch, I live in Tampa, and there's a branch in Tampa that has a brand new facility. They have the sleep pods. They have the robot that wheels around and talks to you and has the video meetings. They have ping pong tables, the gaming, all of these types of things, right? We don't have to have our offices quite to that level. Maybe you have a bring your dog to work or pets to work type of, well, you might not want to mix dogs and cats, right? But maybe you have that kind of a situation where you're able to do, those are free, right? Offer a fitness program, 2 o'clock walk around the building, a walk at lunch club. Offer pet insurance, which by the way, costs you nothing. You can provide it as a benefit to your employees, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's similar to Aflac or supplemental insurance such as Aflac and pet insurance. Don't cost the company anything, but it's something additional that the employee can benefit from working at your organization, and they can feel valued. Maybe you have a wall of fun ice cream facts, or get pictures of famous people eating ice cream. Or I was thinking about Starbucks, right? I was at Starbucks on the airport on the way here, and they have witch's brew before Halloween. Did anybody of you see this? It's like purple coffee. What? Who's gonna drink that? Well, my daughter did. They have all of these crazy mixtures of flavors that entice us and create that fun employee brand. So that's another option. And then there's the wall of fame that we kind of talked about earlier with pictures or what have you. So how do you know what your employees want? How do you know what's important to them? You ask them, right? You ask that, and it doesn't have to be a formal survey. It can be, you can do a Survey Monkey, but you just go around and ask them one-on-one and say, hey, what's important to you? Or, hey, I know that Joe just left. Any ideas of why he left? How can we, this is called a stay interview, as opposed to an exit interview. We find out why people left after they left. Why are we waiting until after they leave to find out why they're leaving? Ask them now, hey, what do we need to offer you in order to get you to stay here? Have you looked at any other companies in the last 3 months? Have you considered leaving us? If so, why? And what can we do to keep you here? What kind of work environment do you want to have? And what suggestions do you have to make this a better place to work? Just asking the questions sometimes and getting them, whether it's a one-on-one, whether it's a survey monkey, or whether it's some sort of a suggestion box. Any of those types of things can work. But people want to feel valued, and you can do that by simply asking them the questions. Yes, sir.
I'm just going to bring up something that we're pretty small, in our office and warehouse and stuff. We'll have, half a dozen in-house employees on any day. Delivery day is crock pot day. So Karen will throw together a crock pot of something, and so they're all working hard. The delivery comes in, everybody's working hard, and we can take a lunch break. And let me tell you, crock pot day is worth $20 to $30 an employee in happiness. And it doesn't cost that much, but something very simple.
Very simple. I love you. I love that, and thank you for sharing, because something like that you're feeding, right? It's sustenance. You're feeding them, and it's an opportunity for us to collaborate together, to network and to talk, and to build that community, that family environment through food. Yeah, great idea. We used to have potluck days when I worked in a warehouse environment. We had potluck days once a month or so often, and everybody would bring something in, and it was, people got to be known. Do you have this in your workplaces? People got to be known. Hey, are you bringing that turkey chili again? Because that was really good. And if you're bringing the turkey chili, then she needs to bring the cornbread to go with it. Okay, let's bring it in, and you get a chance to know. Oh yeah, this was my grandmother's recipe. You get to know a little bit about each other, and when we get to know a little bit more about each other, we build that camaraderie and we build that family environment. That's your employer brand. That's your culture. Our culture is what we continuously do. Our culture is what we continuously do. It's not what's written on the wall. It's not what's written in your handbook. It's what we continuously do. And that includes you as leaders of your organization and how you continuously behave to model the behavior that you're trying to implement. Okay, so this is my daughter. She worked at a location that served ice cream for about 3 weeks. And then she got fired. And we joke about it. She's a strong character, so she doesn't mind. And I told her I was gonna talk about this with you all today. She got fired. Why did she get fired? Because she was filling the ice cream to the top of the cup, not heaping of the cup. Okay? So customers were complaining, hey, I want my ice cream heaping. I'm getting shafted by having it flat. But here's the thing. She was never trained to do that. She was thrown into an environment, watch a 4-hour video, and poof, you're ready to go. So training is really important. Now, here's what I'd like for you to do. I'd like you to get together with a partner, okay? And I want you to work with a partner and clap out. So think of a song and clap out a song. And then your partner needs to guess what the song is. Okay? I'm going to give you about a minute, and then I'm going to have you switch. Okay? If you have an odd number, then you can have a listener. Okay, if you haven't switched yet, switch. Okay. All right, so here's my question for you. How many of you were able to guess the song? Six people. 6 of you. What song was it? Happy Birthday. How many of you did Happy Birthday? Right? Several of you. How many did, what you guys guessed, right?
Mary Had a Little Lamb and We Will Rock You.
How many of you did Mary Had a Little Lamb? Okay. How many of you did We Will Rock You? It's a classic, right? Yes. So only 6, but how many of you were like, come on, can't you get this? Mary had a little, like you're singing it in your head, right? How can you not get this? This is a song you've heard since you were 6 months old, right? And now you can't figure this out? Come on. But the thing is that we're only giving them a small piece of it, right? We're only giving them, we're not filling in the rest of what's going on. We're not able to admit through our clapping what else is going on in our heads. So this is the same thing that happened to my daughter when she was working at the ice cream place. And that she was, the owners of the store, the managers of the store, gave her the 4-hour training, video training, and then, okay, she's got it, she knows it. But there was a whole other piece of the training that they actually had in their procedures that she didn't get. So how often, when we're talking about, well, how come you couldn't get this? You couldn't get Mary Had a Little Lamb? You couldn't get Happy Birthday to You? We sing it how many times a year, right? How often do you say that to your employees? Why aren't you getting this? You should know this. Or maybe you're thinking it, right? Maybe you don't actually say it. Sometimes you do. And the reason is because we as human beings are not mind readers. And so it's really important as leaders to make sure that we are letting individuals know exactly what we expect of them, setting those expectations. We train on skills, we train on culture, letting them know what those expectations are, and then doing it. Culture is what we continuously do. And then also providing them with ethics. So how do you know, how many of you have procedures in place when they have a situation that pops up that this is the customer, we have I don't know, tell me what happens. Maybe like a gallon of ice cream that's melted. And so do your drivers know how to handle that situation when that happens? Do you have procedures in place when something goes wrong so that they know that they have the authority, your employees, whether it's a driver or a warehouse or what have you, when they have the procedures in place to know how to handle a situation and the authority to understand what you as leaders expect, and so they can just act on that. So consider what types of situations that you're continuously dealing with. What kind of questions are you continuously answering? And increase your productivity by answering those questions up front and giving your employees set boundaries, set expectations to be able to handle those situations as they arise, instead of having to continuously come to you and what happens and I don't know and well, let's figure it out. So that can help. And then when something good does happen, spotlight it. Ray Dalio is famous for this. He is the CEO of, I'm going to forget the name of his organization, Dalio, D-A-L-I-O, Ray Dalio. He just wrote a book called Principles. He's a CEO of a financial institution, but he focuses on radical transparency. That's what he calls it, radical transparency. And he wants his employees, no matter what level you are, he wants you to tell him if he's out of line. And he has employees that'll do this. He has employees who are at an associate or analyst level say, yeah, Ray, when we were at this customer meeting, you talked over them and you didn't hear, we talked about a procedure and you completely missed it. You did all of the talking, you weren't listening to any of us, and you screwed up. What did Ray do? He forwarded that email to the entire company and says, this is exactly what I want you to do. This is exactly what radical transparency looks like. Thank you for doing that. You're right, I did. Thank you for spotlighting me on misbehaving. And this is what I want everyone else to do. So whenever you have situations of individuals who are modeling the behavior that you want them to behave, let everyone know. Because we need something to emulate. We need something to copy. Because in the absence of truth, in the absence of expectations, people will do whatever it is that they think they're supposed to do. So it's best to give them clear directions and ask them their feedback to help them continuously improve that process. Okay, number 4, managing performance. So why do you do what you do? I see my crazy sock friend here has, you have your purpose on the back of your shirt. Can you turn around, please? Happiness is just one ice cream truck away, right? So we know what you're focused on happiness, providing happiness to your customers. Is that true? Yes. So you're displaying that for all to see, and where else do you have that listed?
Website, spattered around, business cards.
Yeah.
Stickers.
So people don't go to get ice cream because they're on a diet, right? People go to get ice cream because they want to have some luxury. They want to enjoy, they want to have a little piece of happiness and fulfillment in their lives. That's why I eat ice cream. So a little treat for a job well done, for that little piece of happiness. So how is that, what is your purpose for your business, and how is that translated to your employees? Do they know that we're focused on happiness? And if so, what does that mean? You know, if I'm in an ice cream truck and I have a 2-year-old that drops his ice cream cone, do I have the authority to give him another one without paying again for it? Like, I don't know what your policy is, whatever works well for you. So understand your purpose and make sure that your employees know it, along with guiding principles. You know, like Ray Dalio has radical transparency. So when do you manage your performance? So step 1 is clarification of expectations. When do you give performance reviews? How many of you give performance reviews? Okay, yeah, not very many of you. And that's something that I see a lot. So don't feel bad if you don't. However, how do I know if what I'm doing is the right way to be doing things if you don't share with me? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a formal review. It can be coaching in the moment. If you wait too long to give a review on somebody's behavior, it looks like this ice cream, kind of melted and soggy and maybe not as fabulous. So mixed all together with other things that have happened. So if something happens with behavior, whether it's something that needs to be changed, not done well, or something that is being done well, that they did really well on, those are 2 what I call critical incidents, whether they're doing something poorly or something really well. Spotlight it and let them know. Timing in the moment, it's quicker, it's better to focus on something right away than to wait 2 months and then tell them about it, okay? So how do we do that? I read a statistic recently that says 70% of managers are uncomfortable speaking with employees. 70% of managers are uncomfortable speaking with employees. A lot of that stems, not all of it, but a lot of it stems from having those difficult conversations and wanting to avoid conflict. So how do we do that? Step 1, try to take the emotion out of it, get your mindset in a right way. What's our purpose? What is my reason for having this discussion? Okay? Open yourself up to what can happen here, what sorts of opportunities there are. Step 2, state observable facts. I've noticed that, right? That's a great way to start into it. So let's go ahead and talk through this. What's one of the situations that you have with your employees where it's like a difficult conversation that you want to have? Anyone want to offer something up? They're always late. I've noticed that, state observable fact, I've noticed that this week you've been 10 or 15 minutes late every single day. What's going on? That's all you have to do. State observable fact, what's going on? So then what Dr. Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand, then to be understood. So you lay out the observable facts and you open it up, what's going on? What answers do you get? Traffic, yeah. Traffic is the big one. Oh, traffic was really bad this morning. That's always a safe one to say, right? I've never used that. Traffic was really bad this morning. Just repeat the observable fact. Well, I've noticed that you've been 10 or 15 minutes late every single day this week. What can you do? And then put it back on them. What can you do? Hang on, I'm missing a step. The state observable facts is first. Secondly, you have to relate it to the business. Your presence here is really important. We value you as an employee and we value the work that you do, and it's really important for you to be here on time so that we can work together as a team on time. State observable facts, make it job related, and then put it back on them. What can you do to ensure that you are here on time every day? Well, I suppose I could leave 10 or 15 minutes earlier. Okay, great. And then get their step 4. This is the last step, get their commitment. Are you willing to do that? And that's a simple yes or no question. Well, I guess I could leave 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, are you willing to do that? Are you committed to doing that? And so it's their idea. You notice that you state the observable fact, you state what it's doing to the behavior. They're stating what they can do about it, how to fix it, and you're getting their commitment. So now if that happens again, then you start in with the PIP, the performance improvement plan, writing them up. But that's step 1 for the verbal, right? So typically there are 3 steps. There's the verbal, written 1, written 2, and then termination. How many of you follow that? 3 strikes, you're out. Yeah, it's pretty common. So it's just common because I don't know why. A lot of people do it. It makes sense, but it doesn't necessarily have to be followed. There are always exceptions to that rule, right? In case of egregious theft or stealing or with truck drivers, and I've worked with some truck driving companies in the past, that if you have a certain number of accidents or what have you, then you're out. And then another thing that I like is again, along the same lines of getting individuals to tell them what they're going to tell you, what they are going to do, is the concept of self-promotion. And I got this idea from Nick's Pizza and Pub in Elgin and St. Charles, Illinois. And Nick has been on the cover of Inc. magazine and written a book and all sorts of things. So my family lives in Elgin, Illinois. So one time when I was out there, I'm like, hey, I'm going to stop by and see Nick. And I asked Nick if he would give me a tour of what he was doing, and he did. And here's what he did that was brilliant, I think, that might work for you. So I'll share it. On his application, before you even opened up the application, the very first page of his application status said, this is who we are. This is what we do. We are community-based. This is our purpose, and this is why we do things. If you're not in line with behaving this way, don't even turn the page, because we don't want you here. You're not going to fit in. You're not part of our culture. So he was allowing them to self-select. All right, I know what I'm getting into. I'm going to be a part of the community. I'm going to show up to work on time. I'm going to do all of these things. Yeah, I'm in. Let me sign up. Then I went down into the basement. In Illinois, they have basements, not so much in Florida. We had, and they had a big chart on the wall that had everybody's name on it. And this was a restaurant, so it was things from like hostess, dishwasher, pizza dough maker, pizza sauce putter on her, mushroom cutter, whatever, you get the idea, right? So he had this big chart on the wall, and you were able to take certain classes that he had created, this online courses, and you were able to self-promote. So, and there was a 25% an hour raise, 25 cents an hour raise with each promotion. So you're able to self-promote, you're able to determine, okay, I want to be able to provide, I'm going to take this training because I want to be able to do this next step. But if you don't want to take the training, then you're not going to move to the next step. So it's completely visible, again, along the lines of radical transparency, that he was able to offer each person, treating everyone the same, giving everyone the same opportunities in his organization to promote themselves. Okay. There's a lot more we can go into on managing performance, but hopefully some of those ideas helped you. Okay, lastly, one of the things, I was just at a client site 2 weeks ago with a CEO of a small business. They had about 130 employees, and he said, you know, I know my business really well. The one thing that I don't know is HR. And along with HR comes a lot of labor laws. So let me go over what I call the big three really quickly. The big three, and I call them the big three because these are the top 3 reasons that individuals file lawsuits, okay, with the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The first one is Title VII. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 gives us 5 protected classes: color, race, national origin, religion, and sex. Now, one of the things that's trending nowadays in HR world, business world, is this, how we define sex, which is the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, covers those with sexual orientation and sexual identity and transgender, okay? So if you're going to take an adverse employment action on someone because of one of those reasons, they are covered under EEOC, okay? And that's happened before. I've seen some cases popped up. Nothing has gone to the Supreme Court yet, but it will, which will involve another federal law amendment change. ADA is the American with Disabilities Act. And that covers ADA and the American with Disabilities Act Amendments Act. It covers anyone who has a difficulty with a major life function, which now covers breathing, sleeping, seeing, hearing, walking, standing, thinking. It covers some different types of, what's the word I'm looking for? Different kind of disabilities, like morbid obesity. It covers diabetes. It covers recovering alcoholics and rehabilitated drug users. So ADA covers a lot of things. Here's what you need to know as employers. When you have your job descriptions or your job ads, you need to state the essential job duties of the position, and they you must be able to, the person must be able to complete those essential job duties with or without reasonable accommodation. That's ADA language. Okay. Did you have a question? No, okay. All right, and then the last one of the big 3 is ADEA, which is the Age Discrimination in Employment Act. And basically what ADEA says is that anyone over the age of 40 is a protected class. Now, that also works the other way because I don't remember if it was Facebook or Google, one of those tech companies recently got in trouble for placing job ads for we're only hiring millennials. And I think they might have even said anyone under the age of 25 or something like that. I think they were that specific. So that would be reverse age discrimination. And the EEOC said, you can't do that. You know, I understand that you're looking for someone with certain skills, so you talk about the skills that you're looking for, not the age of your, what we call the avatar, right? Your perfect employee. So those are the big 3. Number 1, lawsuit charge. Anyone want to take a guess? Age? No, that's in the top 5 though. Sexual harassment is number 3. I'm talking about 2017 for EEOC charges. Number 1 is retaliation. What retaliation is when somebody makes a complaint, for example, it could be a lot of different things, but for example, it's when somebody makes a complaint and you're like, okay, you're fired. And because they filed a complaint with you or they made a complaint against the company. Okay, you're fired. Okay, well, you fired me. They could say, you fired me because I made this complaint or because I called out that there was a sexual harassment or a hostile work environment or racial discrimination going on in the workplace. And that's why you fired me. That is an example of a retaliation claim. Okay, that was the number 1 charge against organizations for 2017 for EEOC. Sorry?
What were 2 and 4 you mentioned?
Dang it, I knew you were going to ask. Number 2, I believe, was race, and religion was there, but I can't remember if it was 4 or 6. So, yeah, so race, religion, sex, age, disabilities was up there too. So that I know I mentioned 6 of them. So, yeah. Okay, retaliation I think was like 40% of all of the charges that they got. So then there's 2 other ones here. FLSA is Fair Labor Standards Act. That's the wage and hour division. Those are the ones that govern overtime. So I noticed that there were some questions about overtime that were gathered here for me to talk about today. But I'd like to know exactly what that is, because it can go a lot of different ways. So what question do you have about overtime? Anyone? Like how to calculate it? Your work week, based on a work week, it has to be 40 hours. Your work week is however you define it. Some companies define it Thursday through Wednesday. Others define it Sunday through Saturday. As long as you define it and keep it, that definition, then whatever that work week is. And it has to be hours worked. So if they take PTO or if you have a holiday, that's not hours worked. That does not count in your overtime calculation. Okay? Right now in the news, we're hearing a lot about the overtime, what they call the overtime laws, which is really just how we define an exempt employee. An exempt employee, we typically use the term like salaried versus hourly. Not necessarily true, okay? We can have a non-exempt employee who is at a salaried level or is paid salary. But exempt means that you're exempt from overtime. Non-exempt means that you receive overtime, okay? So right now, the government is trying to redefine what exempt means. There's a salary basis and a job duties basis to determine exemptions. And what exact questions can I answer for you? Just kind of brief overview. Yes, sir.
If we have a work week that in the job description calls for between 40 and 50 hours a week, perhaps that week, especially busy, we all know those July weeks can stretch out a little bit. If we have somebody that does maybe 55 hours, isn't very excited about it, we do pay overtime. Is everything all right?
Yeah, based on what you've told me, yes. So they would get 15 hours of overtime. And again, it's based on time worked. So if July 4th is in there and you have that as a paid holiday, a lot of companies will have it for those major holidays, they'll pay double time holiday pay. But if they're working technically working 55 hours, then yes, you would pay them 15 hours time and a half, okay? There are some exceptions. I don't know if they would really be accountable for you guys in here or be relatable to you guys, but if you have like travel time, if you're traveling to go to a conference or something like that for a non-exempt employee, there are some situations that you can pay differently. But for the most part, what you guys are doing, probably time and a half, okay? Any other questions on that? Yes, sir.
Salaried employee is exempt or non-exempt from overtime?
Yeah, so there are two levels. One is the salary basis, which is $23,660 a year, annualized. Comes out to $455 a week or something like that. So once they meet that, and that's one of the pieces that the government is trying to change right now, because that's back from many, many years ago. And then the other one is the job duties test. So you need to have supervised 2 or more people. You need to have authority over your area, like be able to use your authority to make decisions, so things like that. There are actually, the IRS has different exemption levels. For example, executive level exemption, administrative level exemption, which is what most of them fall under. There's outside sales exemption, IT, and a highly compensated employee, which is if you make over $145 or something $1,000 a year, you fall under that. Okay. Yes, sir.
Outside sales reps that are 100% commission, they choose how many hours they work.
Yes. Those are exempt. So they do not have to work only 40 hours. So yes. And the kind of the thought process behind an exempt employee is, especially I think it falls in line when we're talking about outside salespeople, is that if they get their job done, they have a job responsibility, scope of responsibility. They get it done in 10 hours a week, woohoo, play golf every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If it takes them 80 hours a week to do their job, then that's what you have to work, because you have to follow those scope of responsibilities, get your work done. Does that answer your question? All right. Okay, so I am right at time. There's another one here for the OSHA. And I know there's a compliance person coming in later, so he probably knows a lot more about OSHA, but I went ahead and added it here to the list because I'm assuming that it's something that you all probably have a lot to deal with, the OSHA Occupational Safety Health Act, which is guided by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So a quick note about this before I move on. If you have any questions, or if you're part of an organization perhaps where you want to get some more details about either the wage and hour laws or EEOC, they have people who work in those in regional offices where you're located that can come and talk to you and give presentations about specifics for wage and hour and for EEOC information if you want more details. Or, of course, you can connect with me afterwards. I will be, oops, I forgot this slide. There's a recap of what we talked about. Our priorities for small businesses, we need to make sure we're hiring well, bringing in the people that we want to bring in, and figuring out a way to retain them. I believe that the best way to hire well and to attract those employees is by having a sound, robust culture, even if it's having crazy socks, right? Wearing crazy socks. So think about how you can be creative with your benefits. Ask your employees what they want. Have them come up with potluck day or something. You'll be surprised at what your employees will tell you if you simply ask the question. Provide wholehearted training. Really think of it from a holistic point of view. Are you being clear on your specifics of what you are training your employees? If you have someone who you've promoted to a manager level, have you given that person training on how to manage people? Managers are so important. They are the linchpin to your success in your organization. You can be technically sound and you can have those leadership qualities, and you just have to be able to provide those to your leaders, your managers, which includes managing performance and then staying compliant with all of the various laws. We've only talked about 4 labor laws here, but there are, of course, many, many of them. And I know you have a lot of FDA type regulations as well that you need to abide by. So that concludes my little 1-hour, very truncated talk on HR. Again, I could talk to you about this for an entire semester and still not cover it all. I've been doing it for 20 years and I'm still learning every day. But please connect with me. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and I will be here for the next 3 hours. I'm donating my time to you to be able to ask you any specific questions that you might have. I'm here to help you. I'm very passionate about small businesses, and I have a sign-up sheet in the back. Or if you don't want to sign up, you can just walk by Veranda 2 or Veranda East is another name for it, and I will be there. I'm happy to help you. Thank you.